friends. Welcome to our midweek moment. Pastor Nicole here. So glad to have you join us after a little bit of a break. You know, it is a new year and we have a new sermon series that we kicked off on Sunday called Bad Blood, Exploring Why Forgiveness Matters. Forgiveness is one of those topics that it can be a real challenge. It can be a real challenge for us to think about. I think because it is so multi-layered and there's so many different ways to kind of approach it. So we started off the series on Sunday by talking about what forgiveness is. And we did that by looking at the passages throughout the Bible that talk about God's forgiving nature and how forgiveness is just who God is, right? From the second story in the Bible all the way through, forgiveness is one of the main themes that we see in the Bible. And like I said in the sermon, it's pretty hard to open up the Bible and not find a place where it talks about God's forgiving nature, which is pretty incredible. We looked at so many different scripture passages and we talked about stories where we see God's forgiveness in hopes that it would help us to better understand what forgiveness is, because all that we know about forgiveness, we have experienced because God has shown us forgiveness, right? So forgiveness is one of those things that it is a real challenge. It is just so hard. And for some people, I think it's harder than for others. For some people, maybe they just have a more forgiving spirit. They can forgive and move on. For others, they just might have a hard time kind of letting go of that hurt because maybe they feel that hurt so deeply, or whatever situations in their life that just make it hard for them to forgive. So as we kind of contemplate forgiveness over the next couple of weeks, I want to recommend to you again, if you listen to the sermon, you heard me talk about this book called The Book of Forgiving by Desmond and Mpo Tutu. And it is an incredible book full of a lot of really thought-provoking and challenging passages that just kind of lead us to really take time to think about what forgiveness is, how forgiveness has played a part in my life, whether I am able to let go of things or not. And I think that you will be inspired by it if you take a chance to read it. So I hope you will. It is certainly worth your time to do that. So get a copy and read through it, especially if you are finding yourself having a hard time letting go of something that has happened to you. I think that this book will be really good for you. So one of the challenges when we talk about forgiveness in the church is the breadth of forgiveness, because there's so many different angles that we can talk about forgiveness. So we can talk about how we need to seek forgiveness from God, right? We've all fallen short of God's glory. We know that passage of scripture, right? We've all fallen short. We all need to ask for forgiveness from God. That is an important part of our faith. Then we have granting forgiveness to somebody who has harmed us, whether they have asked us for forgiveness or not, being able to get to a point where we forgive somebody when they have done us wrong. And I think that when we think about forgiveness, that's probably one of the things at the top of our list is, oh, I need to forgive this person because they really hurt my feelings. I need to forgive this person because they really did this terrible thing to me. Whatever it might be. And it can be a challenge for us to get to that place of being able to forgive somebody who has wronged us, harmed us, hurt us. And I think that's kind of where we automatically go when we think about forgiveness is, oh, I need to forgive this person. I'm holding on to this grudge. I know I'm holding on to this grudge. One of the things I think we don't often think about, or it maybe is a little more of a challenge for us to think about, is who do we need to ask forgiveness? Who do we need to seek out forgiveness? So who have we wronged? Who have we done something to? And in order for us to really kind of get into that headspace, we need some self-awareness, right? We need to be aware of how our actions are affecting other people. We need to have a humble spirit and be willing to admit that we were wrong, or even if we don't feel like we were wrong, that what we did still hurt somebody, affected somebody in a negative way. So it takes a little bit more work for us to get to that place where we can identify that we have harmed somebody, and that we can have the humility to then admit, not only to ourselves, but to that person, that we have done something wrong. So as we're kind of going through these next few weeks of forgiveness, I would encourage you to think about forgiveness kind of in those three categories. What we need to do to ask, or where we need to ask God for forgiveness. What forgivenesses do we need to grant others? And who do we need to seek forgiveness from? If we can kind of hold all three of those in a little bit of attention as we go through the next few weeks talking about forgiveness, I think that it will be helpful. And I think that we'll get the most bang for our buck, if you will, out of this series, if we can take some time to really thoughtfully process those three categories. One of the things I talked about in the sermon on Sunday that came from our book, the Book of Forgiving, is that Desmond Tutu says that all of us need to grant forgiveness, and we all need to seek forgiveness, every single one of us. It is part of the shared human experience that we need to grant forgiveness and that we need to receive forgiveness. And I think that that is just a bit of wisdom that we need to carry with us and to remind ourselves of, especially as we're doing some contemplating around this topic of forgiveness. It is hard. Forgiveness is a hard topic to think about because it brings up things that maybe we have pushed down for a very long time, or even just a short time, I guess, but it brings things to the surface that maybe we don't want to bring to the surface because we don't want to think about them and we don't want to have to deal with them. But what we can learn, and I am learning even more in this book, is that when we deal with that, when we deal with those things, we are so much better off, not only mentally, but physically, because carrying those kind of burdens is so terrible for our own health. Mental health, yes, absolutely, but also our physical health. So as we kind of get more into this topic over the next few weeks, I just encourage you to spend some time praying, maybe even a little bit of time each day to just say, God, show me where I need to grant forgiveness. Show me where I need to seek forgiveness. Just that simple prayer, and then spending some time listening or being aware of what comes to our mind might be really helpful. So I am looking forward to continuing on in this challenging series, challenging for me to preach and to teach on. I'm sure it's challenging to hear as well, but I trust that God is going to do a good work through us. So we are going to keep going forward. This week we talked about what forgiveness is. Next week we're talking about what forgiveness isn't. And so I hope you'll tune in for that, either in person or online. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye.